seen Revokers you normally see in the matchup. What that means is that he'll be weaker to equipment from Chris than you would normally expect. Or if Chris maybe has an early Aether Vial draw and Derczo doesn't have one to match, he won't be able to put a stop to it with Revoker.
Well, both these players are starting off with Aether Vial, which is very, very important for this deck. Not sure if it's the best card in the deck, but I would say it's the most important card in the deck because it allows you to Wasteland and Rashad and port your opponent while still being able to apply pressure with creatures. So they both have the very powerful artifact to start.
Yeah, and I think there's a kind of a, if you steal a term from tennis here, there's break points going on with Aether Vial. If one player has it and the other doesn't, then it can really snowball in this matchup. But since both players have an Aether Vial in play, I think we're going to get to see both players deploy their hands before the game ends. So a lot of tactics will show up.
A Stoneforge Mystic searching Umezawa's GT is what Derczo has on the second turn. Andersen picked up a copy of Rashad and port.
Yeah, and one of the things that really can matter in this matchup, some of the key cards, the 4 copies of Swords to Plowshares are invaluable in this matchup. 1 mana removal spell, always good, but it's at its best in these creature mirrors. Outside of that, you're actually looking for a lot of cards that just have good combat stats. The one of Mirran Crusader in Chris's list figures to be pretty decent. Thalia, just by virtue of having First Strike, is a very relevant card in the matchup. And I would say the chief card then to go with that is Mother of Runes.
Phyrexian Revoker has come down. It named Aether Vial, so it's going to shut it off for both players.
Interesting. So allowing Derczo to have Stoneforge Mystic, to have Umezawa's GT, suggests that Chris has another way to deal with it. You can't honestly let your opponent get GT counters in this matchup. The Death and Taxes is a lot of X1s and then some X2s. So those counters just do a number once they happen.
Yeah, that's part of the reason that players go to Dread of Night to be able to beat Death and Taxes. A lot of X1 creatures in the deck. This is a Flaxstones of Trocare. Here's a Thalia Guardian of Thraben. That's in there. Derczo will pass the turn back over to Andersen. Andersen will take the Vial up to 2, even though he can't use it, given his Phyrexian Revoker. At least not right now.
It's like I said before, it doesn't, and on the surface, seem like it would be a Thalia matchup. Both players playing creatures, putting things out with Aether Vial, but actually just the 2-1 first striking body is pretty relevant here.
Yeah. There's another port for Andersen.
Yeah. Port can be strong, especially when they have these Aether Vial starts, but because there's 2 Aether Vials, I don't expect there to be too much mana denial happening.
Here's another Revoker.
Yeah, and this is why the first one was okay naming Aether Vial. My guess would be that Chris's hand wasn't really set up to abuse Aether Vial, so he decided to just turn both of them off. This Revoker certainly is going to name Stoneforge Mystic or Umezawa's GT.
Yeah, I have to imagine it's going to be GT in this situation. We'll get confirmation on exactly what that Revoker did name.
Yeah, I think if you name Stoneforge, there's too much of a risk. I mean, Derczo can't play land 4 or play GT and equip because of his own Thalia, but unless you have a ready answer for the GT, or perhaps he had his own GT, it's too much of a risk to let that one go around.
Here comes Thalia. First strike very powerful here, so no good blocks for Andersen.
Yeah, you see, I mean, even though Chris has 2 creatures to block, just the actual 2-1 first strike body is too big for him to deal with.
The follow-up is a copy of Ethersworn Canonist. And we're going to go back Andersen's way.
Yeah, so just a lot of 2-2.
Now, this matchup is, the mirror is very strange.
Well, and yeah, I think a lot of it is both these decks, I mean, Death and Taxes is not, unlike a lot of Legacy decks, isn't a deck that's just simply playing the greatest hits of creatures. You know, stat-wise, they're playing some 2-1, Phyrexian Revoker oftentimes goes through Standard without even seeing any play when it's been printed there.
Yep.
These cards see play because they're particularly well positioned in Legacy.
Chris going to sacrifice Horizon Canopy. That'll draw him a card. Derczo did deploy that GT.
And it heads up play by Derczo. Chris had Canopy, Plains, and 2 Rashadan ports. And you see Derczo now using his mana advantage to try to port Chris off white. Chris did have another Plains, so that's only going to slow him down rather than stop him.
Now this is a big draw here for Andersen. This is a copy of Mother of Runes.
Right, Mother of Runes in creature mirrors among the most important, if not just the most important card.
Yeah, Andersen unable to play Aether Vial that turn because there are 2 Thalias in the battlefield, so Vial would actually cost 3, not 2.
Yeah, not actually an undo on his side, actually just not a legal play.
Yep. Derczo will draw. There's another port for him.
Yeah. So remember, despite being an artifact, Aethersworn canist a white creature. So Mother of Rune's ability to give a creature protection from white, currently good against all of Michael Derczo's board.
Andersen will draw. Gonna Vial, a couple of lands in hand. Looked like he picked up a copy of Swords to Plowshares for the turn.
Another card that figures real, like the equipment, so important in this matchup. Even if Derczo could top deck a Batterskull, and to that point, I think even if Chris top decks a Batterskull, he would probably make it up to 7 mana and just be able to cast it.
Yeah, Derczo's got the Stoneforge Mystic on the battlefield, so if he draws a Batterskull, it's a pretty good place to be since he can slide it in through that. For Chris, he doesn't have Stoneforge at this point, so he'd have to pay full price, and with 2 Thighs on the battlefield, that'll be 7 mana.
Right, and that's fine. You're right. It's full price with an interest of 2, but even then, there's enough time in this matchup where that's not unreasonable.
Players are porting each other at this point. Andersen's porting Derczo on the end of his turn. Derczo porting Andersen on his upkeep. So Chris has only got 4 mana to work with now. Derczo with 3 planes. Chris will play a planes.
And I'd like to point out what Chris is doing here. He's protecting his white mana at the moment since he, from Derczo, instead of trying to port Derczo off white, because Chris has fewer Rishadan ports. What he's doing is he's using, on Derzo's end step, he's porting Derzo's ports so that Derzo's ability to take away his white is lessened.
Now, one thing to note here is you can see both of these players porting, drawing, not really casting very much. The ground is locked up on both sides. They really can't do anything, and this is why a card like Vryn Wingmare I think might actually be okay in this matchup. On the surface, not particularly good. The text doesn't matter. The only really line of text that I care about on the card is flying. Yeah,
just a 2/1 flyer. I mean, it's interesting because these creatures are not played for their bodies. They're played for their abilities in the matchup. When you're dealing a Texas Mirror, the abilities that matter, for example, Thalia, normally you play her for the add 1 mana ability, but here it's just the first strike that matters. For Vryn's Wingmare, it's the flying that matters. Now, Chris is the first person who might be able to push damage, and we'll see if he does it. Last turn, he played a 2nd copy of Mother of Runes. So that means 1 Mother of Runes can hold back the fort, and another Runes can push damage through if Chris chooses to play it that way. It's a lot of investment for just 2 damage, but if you see how the pacing of this game's played, that's not unreasonable here.
Another Canonist here for Michael. Andersen going to do a little bit of porting here, it appears. He'll untap, he'll draw, and as you mentioned, he might be able to start pushing through damage now since he has 2 active Mother of Runes to Derczo's 0. Also, Chris with a copy of Swords to Plowshares in hand.
Yeah, Swords to Plowshares. It'd be interesting to see how he plays it. It is one of the premium cards in the mirror match, just because, and I'm interested to see how Chris uses it. My guess would be because Derczo does not have a Mother of Runes yet, he's going to, if at all possible, save that Swords for Mother of Runes and hit it while it's still summoning sick.
Mirren Crusader joins the battlefield here for Andersen.
Yeah, if you want to talk about just combat stats on creatures, Mirren Crusader, the biggest creature in this mirror, there is 1 copy of it in Chris's main deck and 0 copies of it in Michael Derczo's main deck.
And Chris has gotten to a point now where he's in a pretty good setup.
Yeah, he can push 4 damage a turn with that Crusader. It's going to put pressure on Derczo to draw, well, as we see here, Vryn's Wingmare, and at the same time, both players to try to find their Sarah Avengers.
Yep. Andersen going to do some porting on the end step. Again, we have seen this before.
In a world of 2 2/2s on the ground, it's the flyers and the double strikers that really matter.
Yeah, but now Chris is able to push through damage with Revoker because there are no good blocks here for Michael. Mother of Runes will be able to protect the Revoker, give it protection from white on whatever's blocked, and be able to chip away at Derczo's board and his life total. The follow-up now is Sarah Avenger. You mentioned that was a big draw, and it certainly is because now Chris is starting to rule in the skies too.
Right, so we'll watch how Chris pushes combat here. Because of those Mother Runes and because of the Mirror Crusader, he certainly is controlling the pace of the game. But if he overswings here, he does give Michael the options to do things like Alpha Strike back. That said, now that Chris has dominance in the sky with Sarah Avenger and dominance on the ground with Mirror Crusader, it will be hard for Derczo to put together a lethal counterattack.
There's a copy of Flicker Wisp.
And that's an interesting one.
See if this plays a huge role in things. Not a lot of great targets at this point. The thing here, he can target the Revoker.
Right, he's going to try to get the Revoker. I'm assuming that's on Umezawa's GT.
Yeah, I would be reached. There we go.
Yeah,
if I'm Chris, I'm reaching for Mother of Runes. Yeah.
Even 1 connection with GT is too many in this matchup.
Give that Revoker protection from white.
Yeah, if if were Derczo to get GT counters, he could use them to kill both Mother of Runes on Chris's side.
Chris cannot allow for that to happen. So Andersen will draw a card.
Now, I know you said you played the mirror sometimes. My inclination is to say that in these mirror matches, Mother of Runes may be the key card.
I mean, Vial and Mother of Runes are incredibly important, and shutting down Vial, as Chris did early in the game, is pretty important so long as you have lands to operate, which both of these players have plenty of now. So Mother of Runes is really the key card, and as a result, stopping Mother of Runes is a key card, via Revoker, via Swords to Plowshares, what have you. And then it's all about kind of creature combat, and as we saw a little bit earlier in the game, creatures really can't attack on the ground. So then you just have to get in the air.
So once we get past the Aether Vial advantage that could happen, once we get past the possibility of one player losing out to equipment, then it comes down to our flyers and Mother of Runes.
Yeah. And Mother of Runes is going to rule over this game because Chris has 2 active ones to Michael's 0. So Michael just is not going to have good blocks basically the entire time.
Now you see Chris here using both Mother of Runes to save his own creatures and really decimate Derczo's board. It does give an opportunity for Derczo to have a good top deck here.
It does and it doesn't. And the reason I say that is because Chris has got this Swords of Plowshares in the holster.
Okay.
So even if Derczo were to draw swords of his own, kill the Revoker, that's on Umezawa's GT.
Try to get GT counters.
Yeah, Chris could say sword your creature, then I can untap again with my Mother's up. And even if Derczo was to say equip and attack with a creature, Chris can say block, give a protection from white, you get no counters, and move on accordingly. So even though it looks a little bit risky on that turn, I still think Chris is perfectly fine. Derczo didn't draw anything of relevance. Chris is going to be able to keep attacking. And I'm not sure Michael has an out in this situation. He's going to activate a Vial now that the Revoker that was on Vial is off the battlefield.
Doesn't have anything to get put into play, though.
Nothing to put in through the 3.
Yeah, so I suppose Chris doesn't take down both the Mother of Runes unless he has a Swords to Plowshares to protect himself from the GT. And because Derczo started the turn with 0 cards, there's no one single card that can draw him past the Swords to Plowshares.
Crusader's going to get jump blocked by the Canonist. 5 damage is going to come through. Derczo's board is being whittled away here. And the other thing to keep in mind as well is continuing to play lands or play creatures, there's no punishment there. You know, there's not a Wrath effect, Cataclysms aren't main deck, none of that stuff. So it's pretty straightforward stuff this game where, you know, if you want to put a synopsis on it, Chris just kind of outdrew Michael this game.
Yeah, and it's interesting that, well, and I don't want to sell Chris short at the same time.
Oh, I don't want to either.
Because I think what Chris did correctly here is if he acknowledging that his Mother of Runes would eventually rule the day. On turn 2, we saw a Revoker into a Stoneforge Mystic from Chris, and I think Chris really aptly named Aether Vial there. And, you know, when your opponent's on turn 2 Stoneforge Mystic fetching GT, which, to be fair, is a lights-out card in the mirror match, that's a pretty heads-up play to not revoke either the Mystic or the GT, but instead rather to say Aether Vial because I believe if I can stall out the board state, then I can carry the day.
That's what he was able to do, and that's why he's currently up a game over Michael Derczo in the Death and Taxes mirror. We'll take a look at the sideboards here because their main decks are a little bit different, and the sideboards for these decks are oftentimes really wonky. So we'll start with Derczo, the more, I would say, knowledgeable of the Death and Taxes players, even though he is down a game. What does he have in his sideboard?
All right, so start on Michael Derczo's sideboard. I'll go through the cards here. He has 2 Pithing Needles, 1 Sunlance. Can't imagine he'll be Sunlancing in this matchup.
I don't think so.
2 Rest in Peace, 1 Absolute Law, 1 Seal of Cleansing. Okay, now we've got past some of the poorer cards, things that he could use. 2 Phyrexian Revoker, 2 Council's Judgment, and 2 copies of Cataclysm. And I'm interested to see, I think we may see all of them. As far as the ground creatures, we saw them being pretty ineffectual there. Cards like, in particular, Aethersworn Canonist didn't look good that game. He probably keeps the Thalia around just because it has first strike. But outside of that, yeah, I mean, I think some number of these get boarded out for the additional removal. And Cataclysm to me is a really interesting card to have in the mirror, and one that I would expect Derczo to go to.
We take a look at Chris Andersen's board. He's got 2 Cataclysms, 2 Aethersworn Canonists, an Elspeth Knight Errant, 2 Rest in Peace, a Manrique Gusari, a Spirit of the Labyrinth, a Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Containment Priest, an Enlightened Tutor, an Oblivion Ring, and a Circle of Protection red. A real hater. Yeah. What do we like here?
Well, Chris Andersen, I think, has shown up better for the mirror match. First card I really like is Elspeth Knight Errant. There's plenty of time to resolve a powerful planeswalker like that and get a lot of value out of it. But then let's talk about some of the more fun one-ofs. Manrique Gusari is something that you can tutor up with Stoneforge Mystic. Gives him an additional ability to deal with Umezawa's Jite and Batterskull, two of the more dominant cards in the mirror here. He also has Enlightened Tutor in the sideboard, which can go ahead and get the copy of Manriki Gasari or Umezawa's Jite, both of which are high enough impact that I would expect Chris to want the Enlightened Tutor. And then last but not least, he also has 2 Cataclysms, and presuming they're decent in the matchup, I'd expect Chris would want them as well.
Yeah, they're not bad in the matchup, so I think both players will have access to the Mapter sideboard. They are happy with their configurations. They are shuffling up, and while they do so, we will very quickly talk about the Star City Games Summer Sale. And this is the one that is still taking place. News sale every day starting at 11 a.m., which means we will have the news sale for you that begins today relatively soon. But this one, you've got a little bit of time left. Save on select packs and booster boxes at StarCityGames.com. And keep in mind that we will have the news sale for you guys after the clock hits 11. So I imagine that'll be around round number 12 of coverage. But
yeah.
Again, StarCityGames.com for more information.
And I would actually say, though they're rotating out, this might be, if you don't have your temples yet and didn't get to play with them for the last 2 years, this is a decent chance to pick up some of them that might be modern playable. I'm really looking at, Temple, the blue-red Temple.
Oh, Temple of Epiphany.
Epiphany would be, it's a decent time if you don't have them. I think the card, Temple is very underrated in modern.
I actually think the temples are pretty good. I don't think we're going to see, 4 temple decks or anything like that, but I think that some number of temples should probably be played in modern decks. Twin decks can get away with 1 or 2 copies of Temple of Epiphany. They don't do much on the opening turns of the game anyway.
Scapeshift decks can definitely get away with some as well.
I could see that. Scrying for that deck certainly helps a lot.
Yeah, we saw the Angel's Grace Ad Nauseam deck with a large helping of temples.
Yeah, Temple of Deceit and Temple of Enlightenment in that deck. Both these players getting ready to go here for game number 2. Great starts for both of them. They're 8-1 with Death and Taxes. We talked a lot yesterday about the decks we thought we'd see here this weekend. Miracles, the Delver variants, a little bit of Omnitel. Didn't talk much about Death and Taxes. Don't oftentimes do that, but it looks to be a decent choice this weekend.
Well, Death and Taxes is always just that innocuous player in Legacy where it'll sneak up and win a tournament when you least expect it to. The popularity of Miracles, I think, has been difficult for the deck.
Absolutely. It's very, very hard. Vial is how Derczo is going to start things.
Does Chris have a vial of his own? That's going to be pretty important.
He's got a Caracas. And yes, he does have a vial. So very reminiscent of the first game.
And that was test number 1. See, Chris has his sideboard copy of Manriki Gasari. Actually, the rest of his hand looks pretty good here. He's one of Mirren Crusaders in his hand again, which, as we saw last game, is definitely the biggest creature out there. He has an equipment to go with it, and he has a copy of Swords to Plowshares, along with a healthy amount of lands.
Revoker is the draw.
I wonder if we'll see Chris just go ahead and revoke those Aether Vials again.
Yeah, we saw it last game.
He's got the ground locked up. He doesn't, and this is where I like Manriki Gasari, he doesn't have to worry so much about being able to answer equipment with the Phyrexian Revoker because he has it covered in Manriki Gasari.
Saw a vial activation there from Derczo.
Yeah, and that's the next part. So Derczo had to activate the vial before the Phyrexian Revoker landed. So Chris gets to know that Derczo has a Mother Runes, and now I'm interested to see just what that Aether Vial named, or whether Revoker named, whether he still names Aether Vial or he switches it to Mother of Runes here.
Yeah, he did name Mother of Runes.
Yeah, I mean, we saw last game just how good it was for Chris. He's forced into that play. And I'm actually, so it's a curious play for me here on Derczo's side to Aether Vial in the Mother of Runes. I'd be inclined to let the Revoker resolve, let Chris name Aether Vial, and then just play your Mother of Runes.
Sure.
Because I think Chris pulled off a pretty big coup here by getting to Revoker the Mother of Runes.
It does show off his potential Mother of Runes, but at the same time, we saw what Mother of Runes was capable of last game.
Right, well, and Chris doesn't have one yet. Derczo had a chance to be the only player with a Mother of Runes.
Andersen with a Horizon Canopy, a Caracas, and a Wasteland. Revoker naming Mother of Runes, while Derczo, 3 mana available, 2 vials available on his side. Andersen going to go towards Manriki Gasari.
Well, there's the Chain Whip. It's a safe play on Andersen's side to cast Manriki Gasari here and equip. The worry would be Derczo playing 4th land, Umezawa's Jite, equip, swing. And if that happens, it's so devastating that despite the fact that Chris has Manriki Gasari, it would never matter because he would never be able to land a creature and get it to live through an upkeep so it could tap. So
Vials are going to go up.
Yeah. Despite the fact that Chris had a great play in Mirran Crusader, Manriki Gasari strong here. He just is in no rush. He just wants to have his bases covered.
Yeah, no, it's all set up. You can get to attacking much later.
Yeah, as we saw last game, once no one attacked for a long time until Chris finally was able to do it safely. But once he did, it's not like he lost that ability. You know, once he was able to push 4 damage once, he could just repeatedly do it each turn. So the setup seems more important than the damage race.
Derczo with a Vial on 3, Vial on 2. 4 lands on the battlefield, a Mother of Runes that's being locked down by that Revoker. Andersen going to Vial in a Stoneforge Mystic. That'll trigger. He's going to search up an equipment.
And this is a dangerous place for Michael Derczo. He already looks to be behind on the board, and Stoneforge Mystic is very powerful in this matchup.
Chris looking at his Sword of Fire and Ice, but he's going to go by that one. Went by his Jite too, so perhaps we're going to Batterskull territory.
Looks like Chris also boarded in a copy of Containment Priest, or rather 2 copies of it, which seems like an improvement over some of the main deck cards. Might even be able to catch a creature with it.
Better than a card like Spirit of the Labyrinth. There is Batterskull. Keep in mind what this also does too is it puts Derczo to the test pretty quickly because Andersen is able to untap right away now because this is on Derczo's end step. So if Derczo has an answer to the Stoneforge Mystic, might want to cast it right now. But it doesn't appear that he does. Vial is going to go up to 3 here for Andersen.
Yeah, and that's setting up for the Mirran Crusader in Andersen's hand.
Mother of Runes was the draw.
Yeah, well, that's not going to do much unless the Revoker dies. But I can't imagine Chris is disappointed in the board, even so.
There's Mom.
And in Derczo's position, because of that Stoneforge Mystic, he may want to consider wastelanding Chris. The mana advantage is really the only advantage Derczo has at the moment.
Derczo doing some bluff Vial activations. It leads me to believe that he does not have a particularly strong hand at this point, even though he has quite a few cards in it.
Yeah, it's a good play to tap that. I mean, that would be the opportunity if Chris had a Containment Priest that he would have to play it if he wanted to get nab cards. So there's some edge to be gained there.
See if Michael can figure out a way to get out of this situation. Things are starting to get pretty tough for him. There's a Batterskull on the way. Here's a Vial activation.
I don't think this one's a bluff.
Yeah, it's a Phyrexian Revoker. You can't respond to this. You can respond to Vial being activated, but you can't respond to the creature coming in, and especially with Phyrexian Revoker because it says as it comes onto the battlefield. So
Right. He can't Stoneforge in the Batterskull in response. So Stoneforge Mystic was named. Now it's a new plan for Chris. It's going to be the Mirran Crusader plan.
It was good in the previous game.
Keep in mind, Chris Andersen does have a Swords to Plowshares if he feels the need to get that Stoneforge Mystic back online. Really just is about the creatures here. Chris with more creatures and better creatures.
Andersen going to equip Mirran Crusader. Looking to deal a healthy amount of damage now. Coming into the red zone.
In addition to the Destroy under equipment ability, Manriki Gasari, give creature +1/+2.
Yep.
So this is a swing for 6.
Looks like Derczo considering some blocking here. Not a great spot for Michael to be in right now, though.
Now, do remember, if you move Manriki Gasari around to a creature, Chris Andersen has to not put it on Stoneforge Mystic because the Destroying an Equipment ability is not actually on the Manriki Gasari. It gives the creature the ability to tap and destroy target equipment, and there is a Phyrexian Revoker on Stoneforge Mystic. So he has to make sure it goes back on to the Revoker or the Mother of Runes.
Derczo's Mother of Runes is going to chunk block. Not interested in taking 6 from that Crusader. The follow-up here for Chris, as he's tapping 2 mana, is a Thalia. Gonna make things a little bit more expensive and pass the turn back. Derczo gonna bounce the Thalia with the Caracas.
Yeah, and this may be a play. I'm just a little surprised because this gives Chris an opportunity to get hit by GT. If Michael has one, he could equip and play and equip and swing it. Wouldn't last very long because of Manriki Gisari.
Yep. Tapping 4 mana pretty quick. Gonna go with Cataclysm. Okay.
All right, and that's the big spell.
One of my favorite cards of all time.
Each player gets to pick an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a land, and everything else goes away.
So this one is very good against Planeswalkers, first of all, because
just destroys them all.
Planeswalkers weren't a card when Cataclysm was designed back in Exodus. So each player will set aside an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a land, lose the rest of them.
Yeah, Derczo has that one copy of Flagstones of Trocare in play, so he'll actually have 2 lands in play when all is taken care of.
He's going to net pretty well from this. This is kind of it's a weird reset button, but it is a reset button nonetheless. And it's part of the reason I think that we saw Derczo not really play much of anything. See, that's the stuff that he's going to lose, and Chris is going to take a look.
Yeah, and you can be creative with how you choose them. For example, Derczo chooses the an Aether Vial as the artifact and the Revoker as the creature, even though it is an artifact, because they are different types, he'll get to keep both.
No enchantment on the battlefield here for Michael, and then the land he's going to choose to keep, it appears to be Caracas. So he'll lose the Flagstones of Trocare, which will trigger. He'll get to Sturge of Plains from that. So reset and rebuilding here is pretty good for Chris. You see, he's trying to figure out what he's going to keep because he has a lot of options. He's got a lot of creatures on the battlefield, a lot of artifacts on the battlefield as well. So he only gets to keep one of each of those.
Yeah, I mean, the creature looks like it's going to be Mirran Crusader. But there's arguments for a lot of them here. He has a Batterskull in hand if he wants to keep Stoneforge Mystic. Mother of Runes is a good keep. I imagine the Revoker will be gone. Unless he wants to keep that as his artifact.
Yeah, because he could let his Vial go, but that he could also let his Manriki Gisari go, and I feel like both of those cards are proven to be pretty good right now. So this is not a particularly easy decision.
So it looks like the keep will be the creature is Mirran Crusader, the artifact is Manriki Gisari, and then the land is Caracas. So he's hoping to ride that double striker to victory.
Ride the double striker to victory and keep the equipment in check, I suppose, is the plan.
Yeah, it's going to strand the Batterskull in Chris's hand.
Yeah, that one's not going to come down this game, probably. Cataclysm done resolving. Derczo does get the Search of a Plane from the Flagstones of Trocare trigger.
So now the question will be, does Derczo have a Swords to Plowshares for the Mirran Crusader? If he does, looks like a healthy board for him. So he'll be the only player with an Aether Vial on a board where all the lands just got blown up. The Phyrexian Revoker in play for Michael Derczo, still set to Stoneforge Mystic way back when.
It's coming into the red zone now.
Probably one of the reasons Chris can't really keep Stoneforge on that board.
Yeah. Derczo even with the land to play afterwards, so he's done a nice job of rebuilding here.
And not just any land, Rashad and Port.
Yep.
Second Thalia drawn for Chris. He has no plays. It's just going to be Mirran Crusader.
It's beatdowns, but this is, to me, not a great spot here for Chris.
Well, Michael has Chris's land tapped with Rashadenport. All it's going to take is a Swords to Plowshares from Michael. And Chris doesn't have anything going on. A game well sculpted around Cataclysm for Michael Derczo.
And what's strange about the whole thing is here's a copy of Council's Judgment.
And not a Swords, but it'll work.
Is Chris, when you're playing with and against Cataclysm, you're walking a really weird tightrope about how much am I supposed to deploy? Does he actually have Cataclysm? Am I being too careful? Should I just dump all of my stuff? Because Chris was really playing out most of his cards. Even a Thalia that just got bounced by a Caracas. And now he really has nothing left. He drew a Port for the turn.
Yeah, it just has 2 Thalias. No point in even playing them.
Yeah, not when your opponent has Caracas on the battlefield. Might see Chris Port here.
Is one reason that you may see players go away from Thalia in this matchup. Unless, of course, they want to be bouncing their own creatures. You see, the win cons in these matchups seem so incidental. Michael just swinging 2 damage a turn with Revoker, adding a Vryn's Wingmare to the mix.
Swords of Plowshares the draw here for Chris. I think he's going to cast that right away. Yep, going to hit the Wingmare. It'll cost 2 because of the Wingmare's text, but it's off the battlefield. Derczo will draw.
Yeah. So far, all that damage done just with the 1 Phyrexian Revoker.
Yep. Andersen going to take 2 more. A Port activation there. Andersen will draw a card. Picked up a Plains, starting to work his way out of these mana troubles that he had. Again, some of those lands were killed thanks to the Cataclysm.
And I wonder at what point Chris is going to have to Swords away that Revoker.
It is a delicate balance.
Yeah, you'd really hate to use it on him, but you'd also hate to take 20 from him. He'd like to just have a creature that blanks the Revoker.
Pretty much. And there are a lot that he has access to in the deck to do that. Draws another land for the turn.
And maybe draw a Sarah Avenger, perhaps. I mean, he has 2 of them in his hand. They're just unfortunately legendary.
Yeah, Thalia not going to get the opportunity because both players have Karakas. Now, if Chris is able to draw a Wasteland to kill Karakas, all of a sudden he's okay. In the meantime, Derczo's just going to keep on attacking. He's not playing anything. It doesn't appear as though he's drawing particularly well.
Yeah, and maybe at the same time, this we didn't think Derczo was drawing very well until a Cataclysm hit.
Very true. Andersen did draw Swords of Plowshares.
Yeah, so he has 2 copies of it in his hand. This is so interesting. At what point is Chris Andersen going to stop taking damage? And I guess 6 is that point.
Yeah, what's interesting and tough about this, because this could be a Flicker Wisp act. Yeah, this could be a Flicker Wisp, and this is where things get really bad.
It allows Derczo to reset the Phyrexian Revoker as well. It used to be on Stoneforge Mystic. Now maybe it'll be on Manriki Gisari.
Because Chris only has, and really this applies to both players, they have 4 Swords of Plowshares. That's really it. So as a result, they really carry a lot of weight in the matchup on what they can do.
Yeah, I think Chris saw that coming. I mean, Derczo did set his vial up to 3 and then not vial in any 3s.
Yep.
It's really suspicious. You see Chris kind of taking his lumps there, letting his first Swords of Plowshares get countered by the Flicker Wisp. But then while Aether Vial was tapped, using a second sword to at least take care of the 3-1.
Revoker is back. It names Manriki Gisari this time. Chris finally drew a Wasteland, so he can kill Karakas and now play Thalia.
Yeah, it's a play you were mentioning. Can't equip her anymore, though. That Manriki Gisari is revoked.
But first strike, good against that Revoker right now.
Looks like we have a Council's Judgment in Derczo's hand.
That is an answer. An expensive one, especially with Thalia on the battlefield. But an answer nonetheless.
Yeah, it would be his turn. Chris would take 2. Now, from our side, it would be 2 damage. We know that Chris has a second Thalia. Chris has 2 cards in hand. Derczo knows that one of those cards is Batterskull. So there's also a chance that Derczo doesn't want to kill the Thalia because he says he notices that if he kills the Thalia and Chris top decks land 5, then Chris actually has Batterskull.
Mm-hmm.
So while Thalia is an annoyance here, it is keeping Chris off of the 4/4.
Pithing Needle.
And I wonder if this is just going to name Batterskull. He knows it's there.
It's going to name Karakas.
All right. Another reasonable name.
I mean, I really think at this point, Michael's got Batterskull pretty covered with that Council's Judgment. So I'm not sure he's that concerned with that card. Here's another Revoker. We'll find out what that one's naming. That one's naming was SCGDC.
Yeah, so I guess clearly not concerned with Batterskull.
Yeah, no, when you have Council's Judgment hand, I don't think it's a card you have to really be too concerned with. So Karakas, Jite, and Manrique Gusari are the cards that have been shut down from these Revokers and Pithing Needles. There's Council's Judgment.
Chris's draw last turn was Oblivion Ring. The danger here, and what I like about how Derczo's played it is, yeah, Chris has a backup Thalia, but he'll go to 2 on this attack. Which means next turn, even if Chris plays a replacement Thalia, Michael has a lethal attack on board.
Now the Council's Judgment is gone. We'll see if Chris draws a land, if Batterskull is actually good here or not. Containment Priest was the draw.
Well, Chris can play Thalia and Containment Priest. He'll need them both as blockers if he wants to survive these Revoker attacks.
Yep.
And I like this because of the flash on Containment Priest, he can just play out the Thalia. And this will induce Michael into a poor attack. I mean, there's a decent chance that Chris is just dead, so wouldn't be surprised to see Michael pull the trigger.
Yeah, that's a shoulder shrug. Here come the attackers. Here comes the Containment Priest.
All right, does this work? Is the game still going on?
We'll see how Chris wants to block.
Yeah, I think he's deciding which creature goes on which Revoker.
Yeah, because one of them has first strike.
Yeah, and that Michael may have one Flicker Wisp in hand. And if so, he'd have to pick which Revoker he wants to save, and then this decision would matter.
Well, if he tries to activate Vial on Flicker Wisp, it would get ruined by Containment Priest.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
So he can't.
Yeah, okay.
He can't do that. Let's see what the follow-up is now. As Andersen is barely holding on.
Yeah, Chris still at 2, thanks to the Containment Priest flash.
Stoneforge is pretty good. He'll search.
See what he wants to grab here. Looks like it's going to be just his own copy of Batterskull. So we know Oblivion Ring awaits in Chris's hand.
A lot of options here for Derczo. He's going to go with that Batterskull.
So if Chris Oblivion Rings away the Batterskull, or rather, sorry, the Stoneforge Mystic, Derczo won't be able to play the Batterskull until he has 6 lands in play.
Here's another Needle. One of them's naming Caracas. We'll find out what the other one's going to name in just a second.
Yeah,
Name Manrique
I was
Gusari.
going to say the Revoker on Manrique Gusari is gone, and now that Michael's searched up powerful equipment, I imagine it's time to make sure Manrique Gusari doesn't work.
Flicker Wisp.
Interesting, okay. So he's going to get rid of the Manrique Gusari Pithing Needle temporarily.
Yeah.
Move the Manrique onto Thalia, and then let it come back into play.
Now, Derczo could name something different with that Needle since it's coming back.
He could name... Yeah, so this is the interesting. Remember that the ability to tap and destroy an equipment goes onto the creature. So naming Manrique Gusari doesn't actually do much anymore. He names Thalia. Chris can't blow up the Batterskull this turn, but he could move Manrique Gusari onto the Flicker Wisp, and then the Flicker Wisp could blow up the Batterskull.
Yep. He named Thalia.
Well, a few times you see a Pithing Needle on Thalia, and then it actually makes sense.
This is it's one of those rare times. Here's a Sarah Avenger. Andersen will untap and draw. Boy, are we in a weird game. There's a Plains.
Andersen, yeah, still alive at 2. The key Containment Priest there.
I think here he has to move that, which he has, and then Oblivion Ring the Sarah Avenger, which he... Derczo's going to take a look real quick. Got to get rid of that flyer, I believe. Yep.
And there you go. It will be Sarah Avenger. Yeah, he just has to pass. The important thing here is that Chris has to leave up Manriki Gasari on a creature not named Thalia.
Yep. Boy, is this a weird game. There's a Wasteland. Derczo passed the turn back. Andersen with 1 card in hand at this point. He'll draw a card. Picked up a copy of Rishadenport. Batterskull's going to cost 1 more mana.
Yep. Noticing that one, unfortunately, Chris does have land 6 in hand.
Germ token on the way. Might be moving things back his way. I mean, this board is cluttered and complicated, but it feels like he's getting somewhere. Here comes Thalia. It's a little risky, maybe. All right. Gonna try to kill this. Is there a Flicker Wisp that's involved from Derczo? Okay, he just says, I'll rebuy this. All right.
Well, it does. He can use this 5 mana to tap Chris's flyer.
Yeah, does he have anything to put in a vial? Nope. Okay.
No, and that was a big moment.
Yep. They're giving a chain of events there that were very bad for
I mean,
Andersen.
just vialing in of Rin Wingmare there would have done it.
That's it, yeah. That's why I actually don't like the attack there with Thalia, because it sets off a bad chain for Chris.
Well, as long as the 3-drop, if you think about the vial on 3, Rin Wingmare and Flicker Wisp are the only 3s. So I don't know if attacking with Thalia actually changes any of that, because the damage would come in the skies.
Sure, I mean, like, so he attacks with Thalia, Derczo puts in Batterskull, which forces your Flicker Wisp to have to go after Batterskull, because you can't let him gain the life, and then your flyer's gone, and then you just die to a flyer. So if he doesn't attack at all,
sure,
then his flyer doesn't have to tap, and
that.
so then he's fine against a flyer. So that sets off a chain of events that are actually pretty negative for Chris by just attacking with the 2-1 to get 2 points of damage through. Cataclysm is here again. So
yeah, they do play 2 in the sideboards.
Yep.
Now, this isn't the most Cataclysm-friendly board for Derczo. See, he wants to keep Stoneforge Mystic, Aether Vial, and then 1 of his land, and 1 Rishadenport. Gonna get rid of his Pithing Needles.
This is actually pretty tough for Chris, because I think he is forced to keep Batterskull, Germ Token. Batterskull's artifact, Germ Token is creature, Oblivion Ring is enchantment, and then whatever land he opts to keep.
Yeah, so if he wants to keep Batterskull, he'll have to keep Batterskull and Germ Token, because he won't ever be able to re-equip it. I guess the other side is that he could just keep Manriki and Flicker Wisp and hope that that works. The danger about getting rid of Manriki Gasari is all it takes is a top deck Plains from Derczo, and then the Batterskull in Derczo's hand is live.
Though in that situation, you have Batterskulls kind of just running into each other, which isn't the end of the world.
Yeah, and you see he does keep the Germ Token. It won't be the end of the world. Derczo will be able to rebuild quicker. You see, there's the Plains. Once he gets up to 3 mana, he'll be able to rebuy his Batterskull. Chris will have no such luxury.
That's a good draw.
Unless he draws Mother of Runes. Wow. Huge draw from Chris Andersen.
Derczo will draw.
Well, Michael made his bed here with the Cataclysm. He's going to be putting in the Batterskull with Stoneforge. However, thanks to Mother of Runes, that play is not going to be what Derczo wants it to be.
So Batterskull's going to come in. He'll get a Germ Token. Germ Token's black.
And I can't imagine he's blocking here.
Yeah, it's not a profitable block.
I'll do it.
Yep. Protection. Now this is where things get bad for Chris, because if Derczo has Flicker Wisp, things get a little more interesting. I suppose if he had Flicker Wisp, he could just Flicker Wisp out the Germ Token that Chris has. Flicker Wisp is just going to be good for Michael no matter what here, and there's not really a lot that Chris can do about it.
Chris uses Port on Michael's upkeep to take away the white mana. Man, that Mother of Runes.
It was a huge draw.
That one stung. Remember, Chris Andersen took the first game, so if Derczo can't answer this here, it will be a 2-0 game. As it is, these drawn-out affairs of Death and Taxidermiers, we are at just under 5 minutes remaining in the round.
Wasteland from both players. Derczo going to activate his vial. Nothing to put in, though, so Chris is going to go up to 14. Derczo going to go down to 9. Mother of Runes is active. Michael will draw.
Michael would hope to find something like Mirren Crusader, maybe reset his Batter Skull in time so he could have a black and white creature.
Well, now he's drawn Mother of Runes.
Not a bad draw from him. Remember, Derczo needs to win this game. It's not enough for him to stall it out.
Yeah. Chris going to go up to 18. Derczo down to 5. Andersen will just pass the turn back.
You go all the way back to what looked like a Derczo victory when he had 2 Fire Extinct Revokers swinging. A Containment Priest was able to stave off lethal attacks for 1 turn, and Chris has just turned it around from that point.
Plains, Sarah Avenger, Derczo empty-handed. Chris will draw.
And these are great draws from Derczo, maybe even enough for him to regain some traction on the board, but his Andersen's life total is too high and Derczo's is too low, and he still has no answer for Mother of Runes. Drops to 1.
Yeah, he's got to peel Swords now. Swords or Flicker Wisp, either one. Flicker Wisp can take care of the Germ Token, Swords can take care of the Mother of Runes.
Some way to not let a pro-white creature get through.
Yeah, even an artifact creature would get the job done as far as blocking is concerned.
The issue is that because Derczo's at 1...
Boom, nope, just a Wasteland. Not going to get the job done.
Yeah.
Chris Andersen is going to win this match here over Michael Derczo, 2-0. The Death and Taxes mirror goes to number 25 on our Season 3 leaderboard. And for Andersen, he's still having trouble losing, which is a good problem to have.
Yeah, impressive comeback there, game 2. So he sweeps the match 2-0.
The Death and Taxes mirror is very strange, as you all probably just saw. There's a lot that is going on back and forth in the matchup. It's very unconventional as far as a legacy mirror match is concerned. We've seen Delver mirrors a million times. We've seen combo mirrors a million times where people are just trying to kill each other faster than their opponent. But in this mirror match, it's a lot of weird creature combat. There are cataclysms involved and Revokers and Pithing Needles and everything that we just watched. And Andersen was able to get by with that top deck of Containment Priest and then Batter Skull helping him ride it to victory.
Yeah, so for him, moves up to 9-1.